what I can say with Kenyans, there is a lot. Like Kenya is like Bitcoin. It's 24/7. It does not sleep. Guys do not sleep. They're looking for the next best thing or how to improve on this or how to add value. So even in the Bitcoin space, even when I look at it in Africa overall, like a lot of when it comes to Kenya, like a lot of guys are really pushing.
All right, everybody. We are back and here today with the one and only Master Guantai, a masterful Bitcoin educator based in Nairobi, Kenya. His forte is educating people via social media, but he's also been educating people in real life these days, which is very cool. He also founded Bitcoin Matani, a website that translates Bitcoin educational materials into native African languages. And he runs tours from Nairobi to rural Kenya to show people the Gridless facilities. Gridless is an organization that does Bitcoin mining with hydroelectric power in rural parts of Kenya, or a rural part of Kenya. So that is my introduction. Master Guantai, please introduce yourself. Please let the audience know what I might have missed there. I'll hand the mic to you.
Uh, Thank you very much. I'm privileged to be here. It's been a long time coming. For me,
Yeah.
my name's Guantai Kabrima, but I go under Master Guantai on all platforms. I introduce myself on educational videos as your favorite Bitcoin maximalist from Nairobi, Kenya. Uh, what I primarily do on a daily basis is Bitcoin only educational content. So Monday to Fridays consistently, I have two video series going concurrently. One is Ask Master Guantai, which is basically to debunk any misinformation, disinformation, and to put a spotlight on different shitcoin projects so that Kenyans specifically and guys in East Africa do not get taken advantage of. And then there's the Master Guantai Bitcoin series, which now I'm on page 32 of the 200-page Bitcoin diploma book. So I do the review of the book in English, Swahili, and Sheng, giving appropriate examples, especially to the Kenyan demographic, with a very very clear emphasis on youth between 16 and 25 years old. I also run Bitcoin Tani, which is primarily Bitcoin education, and partner with different companies to do live events for educational training and even promoting Bitcoin companies, be it services or products that I personally believe will add value to Africans who want to join the Bitcoin standard. And finally, I run the Bitcoin Matatu tours, which is basically custom custom concierge like tours service. So we go to different projects here in Kenya. We're starting in Kenya from Gridless to the facility to the school in Machakos, the built with Bitcoin schools and other places. And just generally want to welcome all Bitcoiners to Africa and make them know that they're with a fellow Bitcoiner and they are very well taken care of from the airport, coming in and leaving. Thank you very much. That's my introduction.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the overview. You seem like quite a busy person, given what you just explained, and plus from what I see through your social media. I wanted to talk a little bit about the sort of Master Guantai mystique that you've developed. When I first came across your profile picture, your laser eye profile picture, I was like, "Who is this guy?" Like, this guy. It's like it was the best. It's still actually, I think, my favorite laser eye profile picture out of the whole Bitcoin space. So, what made you want to develop the Master Guantai personality? Where did the name come from? I know it's part of your name, but what made you think to approach your sort of image online the way that you did?
So for the longest time when I was studying Bitcoin, uh, it hit me that a lot of people would not be able to consume Bitcoin content in English or other foreign languages. So the day that I had the light bulb moment to start Bitcoin, Tani for Bitcoin education, is when now I came to the realization that I cannot be teaching if I'm not competent myself in what I want to articulate to others. So befitting that, the name master for me, basically, it's kind of intimidating and that kind of thing. But for me, what it actually means is just a personal challenge to myself that
Mm.
for anyone to master any discipline in the whole world, you must put in a minimum of 10,000 hours studying it and practicing it. So, master to me is a personal challenge that each and every day I must watch, like your podcast, maybe read a blog, read an article, make sure I'm abreast with everything going on in the Bitcoin scene internationally and also in Africa. So, yeah, Master Guantai for is the handle I chose, and obviously
I love it.
the laser eyes until 100K. We must keep
Yeah, I
it
love it.
consistent.
Yeah, I hope you keep them even after 100K. I think the image is amazing. Yeah, it's great. That is amazing. One of the things that I struggle with is actually keeping up. There's so much that happens in the Bitcoin space. There's so much development in the space. Um, Given that you consume a lot of content, that you educate yourself consistently, do you find it challenging at all to keep up with everything that's going on and to also to wrap your head around some of the technical aspects of what's happening in Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I may start by just saying that for me, I'm not technical when it comes to Bitcoin. So
Mm.
I give myself a very clear pathway of, yes, let's say something like ordinals comes up and all that kind of thing. I learned to quickly brush through just to know what it is, but not give it like attention, like at all. So for me, I have certain podcasts like obviously yours. You've been highlighting a lot of like my fellow Africans who are doing amazing work in the Bitcoin space here in
Yeah.
Africa. Someone like Michael Saylor, when you listen to that, is like listening to poetry and
I
yeah,
agree.
like
Yeah.
Bitcoin magazine articles, like just keeping it to very very relevant podcasts and blogs which are very very Bitcoin focused with a lot of signal, not a lot of noise. And then
Yep.
myself, I prefer to consume content in either audio or video, not necessarily like reading a book. But when it comes to, let's say, like a book like the Bitcoin Standard, I can give myself a personal challenge to read it maybe in a month or two. So I know
Cool.
each and every day I can do like 5, 6 pages, write my notes, so I get consistent with it. So that's how I
Cool.
do it myself.
I love it. That's great. And you said before, I agree. I think before you start teaching, you should study Bitcoin for at least 5 to 10,000 hours, 10,000 hours ideally. I think that's probably about how long I studied before I started writing about it 2.5 years ago. Um, so when did you find Bitcoin, and did you dive right in and start studying immediately, or did it take you some time to sort of figure out whether Bitcoin is like a real thing, something you should be paying attention to or not?
Like my Bitcoin story is for me obviously went to school, primary, secondary school, went to grade schools, but decided not to finish university, so I dropped out as a second year student. I joined the military. Uh, I was an officer in the Kenya Navy, so did some service when I was relatively very very young because I joined when I was like
Mm,
21 years old, and then like
mm,
I just felt inside me I do not want to be a career soldier, something which really angered a lot of my like parents and relatives because they want you to be this great military guy that is in their
mm.
family. So when I decided to leave the military, for me it was I wanted to do like some private security jobs like abroad because at that point in time like there was a lot of opportunities like in Iraq and Afghanistan because that's when like the Americans had gone there. Um, but quickly even decided like I just wanted freedom. So I just wanted like to travel, see other countries, and even do some work whereby it's not yes sir, yes sir, yes sir all the time. Like I can be the boss of me. So
Yeah.
how I got into Bitcoin is I was introduced to forex trading. So forex trading studied like for 2 3 months, and I knew I was going to be rich because like yeah. So started.
Could, could I take one quick second? Just so that for the audience, so for people, especially people who are listening, forex trading is short for foreign exchange. So trading different foreign countries versus, I'm sorry, trading different foreign exchanges or different currencies against one another. I apologize. Please continue.
Yeah, so started forex trading, blew like my first account for like $1,000 in like 2 weeks.
Mm,
So instead of giving up, uh, for me, I've always been like anything I want to do. Like if there's someone in the world who can do it, I can also sit down and read more and grind more in order to be that guy as well. So even after blowing the account, I just decided to double down and not trade real money, trade like on a demo account just to teach myself as I study more. So by good luck, I got a very good channel which was just starting on YouTube. So slowly by slowly started learning diligently, and then I could see there was like a big community because all over the world guys were saying they had gone through my same experience and then lost a lot of money. So the guy behind the channel, I came to like trust him. So after doing like 1 month of consistent like the podcast, the blogs, and everything, after the forex and everything, so he started talking about this thing which is Bitcoin. So even how he introduced it was, why do people lose money like even in the forex market? So it transitioned that to now asking guys to really study about what is money and what is the
yeah.
Fed and the whole Bretton Woods system.
Yep.
So for me, it was not so much about like finding Bitcoin, but being extremely angry about, like in secondary school, I studied business education, but being
Hmm.
extremely angry to find out at like 25 years old that the Kenya shilling, which is pegged to the US dollar, the US government does not actually print their own money. And there's this animal called the Fed, which even the name by itself is very, very misleading because it's not
It's
federal, it's
very
a
misleading.
private bank.
Mhm.
And then the whole Bretton Woods system and the documentary about how these bankers got together to push the legislation and everything. So for me, there is when like it was the math is not mathing. Like we have police, we have professors and everything. Where are it like people going to jail for this? So there's something wrong. I can see there's something wrong. So
Yep.
now when you mentioned Bitcoin, I started myself personally. I started watching. At that point in time, the Pomp podcast was like the number one daily Bitcoin only educational podcast. So
Yeah.
yeah, like
It was good for a while. It was great.
I was totally a Pomp junkie, like 100%. So watching his, and then getting to learn about like what Bitcoin did podcast, and then now learning
Yeah.
about different podcasts in the Bitcoin space. So I got very excited to learn. So for me, it was not even learning even to invest in it, or even to buy some. Initially, it was like there's a problem here which our government is not solving, and it is hurting us as Africans and everything, and it is not good for us. But there's this alternative. So let me research about the history and what money is, but concurrently looking at this new new system of money that can be better for us as Africans specifically. So now
Yeah.
we're studying those concurrently, watching these documentaries, and then learning about Bitcoin. Like, yeah, like Bitcoin to me, what I say is like Bob Marley's song, like when the music slaps, you feel no pain. So
Oh yeah.
when the Bitcoin slaps, it's like your mind is blown.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. There's a big question that I've been um trying to answer. And as you've mentioned, I have interviewed a lot of people from Africa, and I have my own opinions as a non-African about why I think Bitcoin would be helpful in Africa. Also, as someone who has spent some time in different parts of Africa, but why do you think Bitcoin is so helpful for Africa in general? And do you? Yeah, let me leave it at that.
Well, Bitcoin is extremely at this point in time, and even like if I can like give a projection even for the coming even like just 5 years, Bitcoin is extremely useful in Africa even compared like to the States or the UK, because when it comes to the States and the UK, you are so you're so used to it's like being complacent, right? Because even
Yes,
like
that's right.
your banks work, you're introduced to
Yep.
credit cards when you're very very early on, like even like in your teens, and they just work, and that's so like you're not in a rush. For you, for me, how I see it, like the America and Europe, they are not in a rush to like embrace this change. So in
Yep.
Africa right now, like there are a lot of talk about problems like remittances. In Africa, you find that there is a lot of brain drain which has happened to the West. So you find there are a lot of highly trained, highly educated Africans who now study here but go for better job opportunities which pay more in the States or in Europe. Those guys,
Yep.
obviously, in most families, they tend to be the biggest breadwinners in their immediate families. So these guys now, when they go abroad and get these better opportunities, they want to send money to their families and to their loved ones, like even
Yep.
just to support them or that kind of thing. So for them, it's very stressing sending money to someone who's in Africa, because we're talking about the whole 4 working days, the whole KYC and everything, especially if it is a large amount, which can even be
Yep.
even arbitrarily taken away by the powers that be. The charges are astronomical. Maybe they're sending money to you, can be the only guy who like got this great education, but like your brothers and sisters here do not know like how to open a Western Union account or how to open a PayPal account, that kind of thing. So it's extremely like frustrating. So, like as we say, like Bitcoin solves that, because with the Lightning Network, there's no way you're having friction between the government and anything. And then, like I would like to especially appreciate like companies who are in the Bitcoin space, making it even possible to on and off ramp, and especially off ramp with good customer care. Because now, let's
Yep.
say if I'm in the UK, I want to send my sick relative here in Kenya money immediately. I can do that through Lightning, and they can get the money in Kenya in fiat to pay like the hospital bill, like in seconds, literally. So that solves that. And then one of the biggest issues in Africa right now is unemployment. When you talk specifically about uh, a case like Kenya, where I'm from, and this like is the general sentiment, like the general reality in different African countries, more than 60% of the population are the youth. That is between the ages of 18 to 35 years old. These are not these are not uneducated people, because like in Kenya, it is mandatory to go to school like until the secondary school level, and then doing mathematics, English, and Swahili is a must. So these are guys like have gone to college, they are articulate, oral and written, they are bilingual, like guys who can do something to offer value. So
Yep.
one of the things of how I see like Bitcoin being hope, we say Bitcoin is hope, but more so like Bitcoin is hope for Africa, is there are a lot of Bitcoin companies coming up across the world. And right now, especially after COVID, everyone knows that they can do remote work. So for this guy who has done any course like marketing or HR or anything else, all they need to do, because they're not getting jobs here in Kenya or here in Africa, is simply to study Bitcoin. Not even buy any Bitcoin. Just find time, find a way to study about Bitcoin. And then when you study about Bitcoin, you bring the education you have and Bitcoin together. And then now you can get gainful employment from companies which are overseas just because you learned about Bitcoin. So when you get like examples like that, and even like when it comes to art, like in Africa there are a lot of arts and crafts, sculptures, that kind of thing. So you find
Yep.
a lot of artisans and a lot of artists who do this kind of thing have never had proper access to the international art market,
Yep.
because now there is a barrier to entry for to showcase your art at a gallery. You don't have that money to do so, even galleries which are here in Nairobi. But through Bitcoin now, all you need is to just open a free website, take some photos of what you have to offer and everything, start a Twitter page, start Instagram, and just put a lightning address. And all of a sudden, you have opened your business to the whole world. So those are just some
Yeah.
of the examples that I can put to show that Bitcoin is truly hope for Africa and is extremely useful in Africa. And then one, like the last point, will be like connectivity. Like Africa, like here in Kenya, majority of the people do not even like using banks. They prefer
Interesting.
using mobile money. Mobile money is like Safaricom. What is owned by Safaricom? It's called M-Pesa.
M-Pesa, right?
So
Hmm.
through M-Pesa, people find it like you can pay at any taxi, restaurant, barber shop if you're going to buy some meat and whatever. So a lot of people here in Kenya, most people in Kenya who use banks are a few subset of the like certain like SME businesses going up, and then white collared jobs people because they need to get paid through the bank. But when you find your average guy with a barber shop, like pushing even proper money, or a high end salon, they just have an M-Pesa pay bill number. No one has all that time for all that jazz to to do their bank and everything, or swipe the card with the PDQ. So one thing
Yep.
where that is a blessing, especially in Kenya, people are used to this virtual Kenya shilling money through M-Pesa. So now in Kenya, unlike let's say some parts of Africa, when you talk about Bitcoin, even sending and receiving, like a guy is just like, yeah, I have my M-Pesa app, so I can send this guy money and I can also receive money in Kenya shillings. So it's just the same. It's just that this one I'm sending Bitcoin and I'm receiving Bitcoin. And what is the
Mm.
advantage? It is international. There's no government all up in my face. There's instant settlement, and it's a shiny new toy. Yes, so they love it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. Um, Thank you for that overview. That was amazing. I'm going to ask you the same, or yeah, the same question that I asked Marcella Lorraine of Bitcoin Data, which is she's another educator in Kenya who I interviewed a few episodes back. She, I asked her, I've in through Twitter, I found a lot of people, specifically in Kenya, who are very sharp when it comes to Bitcoin. They've done their work, they've done their homework, and not only that, you have people like Nolene Somba, who I believe translated a book like Layered Money, Nick Bhaktia's book on Bitcoin, into Swahili. You translate Bitcoin materials into Swahili as well. Kenya, I think, was well known for M-Pesa, one of the first sort of well-known mobile money platforms in Africa. Um, what is it about Kenyans, do you think, that makes them so sort of financially savvy and sharp? Why is Bitcoin sort of gaining so much traction in a place like Kenya specifically?
In the whole of Africa, like I can tell you, like Kenyans are very ambitious, hardworking, and they have a certain Kenyans have a certain grit to identify new opportunities.
Mm.
So the average Kenyan, instead of finishing university and just staying at home like all depressed and everything, saying they don't have a job, if they learn about something like Bitcoin and maybe see Guante is doing these videos and has gotten a certain sponsorship from this and this company, like when I started my video series on TikTok, it took less than 2.5 months. And even right now, like, I only have 400 followers, but I have a lot of views. But now Bitcoin
Oh,
only companies like approach me to do the t-shirts and everything to market their products and services. So I actually started
okay.
getting, like, I have paid sponsors for my video content without even
Mm-hmm.
reaching the threshold of a thousand followers on TikTok for my channel to be monetized.
Mm,
So when
that's amazing.
yeah, so when a young guy sees that Master Guantai is doing all of this, and then he's being sponsored by so and so, they are doing t-shirts, they are going to teach this and this, he can clearly see, even if he does not know the mathematics, he can clearly see that this guy is he's getting something out of this. So instead of me just like staying at home and just sending CVs and hoping for the best, I lose nothing by just learning this and like finding my way, like just finding my way in the space. That's why, like,
Yeah,
I totally love like what my brother Man like Wex from Tanzania like is doing in the space. Like Man like
yeah,
Wex likes playing a lot, likes creating music.
yeah.
So there's even a Master Guantai song and everything, and there's a Bitcoin
Oh,
Dada
cool.
song, there's a Gorilla Sad song,
Yep.
and through that, like he does his music, like, let's say, to highlight what I'm doing and with Bitcoin Tani, and then he uploads it to Wavelake. So on Wavelake now he can earn Bitcoin for his songs now.
Yep.
So you see, like, from the convenience of your own home with simple equipment, you can start earning in Bitcoin instead of, yeah. So what I can say with Kenyans, there is a lot. Like, Kenya is like Bitcoin. It's 24/7. It does not sleep. Guys do not sleep. They're looking for the next best thing, or how to improve on this, or how to add value. So even in the Bitcoin space, even when I look at it in Africa overall, like, a lot of, when it comes to Kenya, like, a lot of guys are really pushing, and we have even Bitcoiners who were not even Bitcoiners, let's say even 6 months ago, and right now their projects are like properly blowing up, like Felix with the cop.
Mm,
Like, guys enter the space and like really go hard because, like, Felix does branding. So,
yep.
what I can say with Kenyans, like, expect like high quality, and the timing and everything going well. Yeah.
Yeah, when I think about it's funny as you were just saying that, the first thing that came to mind was I used to be in the music business and I worked for a lot of independent record labels, and I was always looking for bands that were hungry, that wanted to get their name out there, that wanted to do something. And I think a lot of the people that I interview, including yourself, remind me of like bands that I used to want to sign or work with. I was like, yeah, these people, they want to make something, they want to get their voices out there, they want to share something with the world, and it's really, really inspiring. And in Kenya, I feel like there's just so much of it. There's it just seems like a really special place right now, in terms of the way people are helping each other, or educating one another, and the sort of entrepreneurial spirit that's coming out of there. It's really, really, it's inspiring to see from afar, and I hope to see it up close. Hopefully, within a year or two, I hope to be there. Um, I wanted you to take a quick moment. I know that you very carefully consider the companies that you partner with. I wanted you to take a quick moment to share what some of those companies were with the audience, because, like I said, as I trust you've done your due diligence on them, and please give them a shout out and let them know let the audience know what those companies are and what they're up to.
Yeah. So for me, consistently throughout my Bitcoin journey, I've worked with different Bitcoin only companies.
Mm,
So when I say I'm a maxi, like, yeah, I'm your typical red-eyed maxi, like laser eyes all the way. So right now I have two like Bitcoin companies which I'm working with. The first one, my sponsor on the Master Guantai Bitcoin niche series. It's called Spirit of Satoshi. Now, Spirit of
mm,
Satoshi is an an Bitcoin AI platform where you get to learn and earn at the same time. So basically, you have to you basically go online and then submit the form, like enter some details and everything, and then they get back to you if you have been accepted. The moment you are accepted, now they have three distinct places where one it's even the AI generates like a question, what is Bitcoin, and then you have an answer like Bitcoin is da 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 da. So when you want to, there are three buttons. You can choose either to accept the answer or decline the answer, or even go to the next question. So if your answer is accepted, but now as an appropriate answer, which the AI now can give a certain member of the public, like when they want to engage with it, now you earn some sats by doing so. So
That's amazing.
it's something which you can, like, basically these days. I do it like for 2 hours like every day, and it's something which
Wow.
I can even do like when listening to a podcast, because you can just be chilling. Maybe you're just chilling on a Saturday evening. You can decide to do your 2 hours and some sats. And the best thing about the Spirit of Satoshi AI platform is you earn a significant number of sats. It's not
Okay.
most Bitcoin applications give you like 10 sats, 5 sats. That is not the
Yeah, yeah.
case. Like, you'll be proper earning like in Bitcoin. Yeah. So I encourage you guys to do that. And
Cool.
then the second one is the second one is the no one's app. So for the no one's app, they have engaged me as Master Guantai through Bitcoin Tani to do Bitcoin educational trainings. So this is very, very geared towards educating the youth about Bitcoin, and then educating them about the the advantages of being a peer-to-peer trader, so they can get to learn about Bitcoin, and at the same time get the knowledge and be in a position to know the advantages of being a P2P trader, whereby now they can also earn in the Bitcoin space.
Yep.
So yeah, right now those are the two companies I'm working with. So for the Spirit of Satoshi AI platform, I'm the official African ambassador, and for the No One's app, I'm doing their Bitcoin education and training, and basically leading the way, working closely with the team when it comes specifically for the East African market. Other than that,
Yeah.
I would like to give a very big, sincere shout out to to Blink and Galloy, because I
Yeah.
honestly would not be Master Guantai without Galloy and the Blink team, because they are even the first investors in Bitcoin Tani. So that's how like I got
Mm.
started. So we have done numerous like promotions with Andrew and the team, and yeah, I'm always their guy 100%.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I think on the third or fourth episode of this podcast, we had uh, pretty flaco Yamal Kasar on. He works on the Blink wallet as well, but that's great to hear. That's really really cool. And also, just for the audience, for people listening, the No One's app is spelled, it's Noones. And if I'm not mistaken, that was developed by Ray from Paxful, or formerly from Paxful. If
yeah,
am I correct? Okay.
yeah.
So Paxful was one of the bigger, or it still exists, but Ray is no longer involved with it. It is, or Ray Youssef, that is. It was a peer-to-peer trading marketplace, and that's what Noans is now. I have not used it myself, so I can't speak to it, but I'm glad to hear that it's starting to gain some traction and that you're teaching people
Yeah, but
about it. You speak.
other than that, I can just add that basically I work with other Bitcoin only companies, especially to provide products. When I say products, I'm talking about like Play Shamori for the kids' books.
Mm,
Scott, the wife and the lovely daughter. Yes, I also work with them. And then
cool.
one like very important Bitcoin company I work with also is CoinKite, because now through CoinKite we get to bring the hardware wallets and everyone needs for self custody to the African
Yep.
continent to make it possible for people to like experience it, buy it, and interact with it like in the best way possible. So there are a lot of
That's great.
Bitcoin companies who do a great job. Companies like even Blockstream, I was on their sovereign stories. So a big shout out for all the Bitcoin only companies, and they always have lovely teams. And despite maybe being in competition, like let's say CoinKite and Blockstream, they always like work together closely, and there's never like certain bad blood like in the
Yeah.
fiat space, if I may say so.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. I was listening to the first podcast that Jack Mallers did with what's his name, the founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, and they were talking about how Jack Dorsey has an app where you can buy, sell, use Bitcoin. So does Jack Mallers. But they said they don't feel that they're in some sort of, like you put it, like bad blood competition, like they're trying to outdo each other. It feels more like cooperation than competition. I think for the most part, people in this space want people to make their own decision, find the best wallet for them or
Yeah,
app for them. And at the end of the day, we're all sort of working towards the same cause of broader Bitcoin adoption. So that's good to see.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of the educational efforts that you know of which you do plenty, what do you feel like is often the biggest hurdle for people when it comes to understanding and or using Bitcoin? And I want to ask specifically in person, what sorts of questions do you get? And I asked this, I'll give a little context. I did a guest class or a guest lecture in a class for Bitcoin Data, and these women, Bitcoin Data is an organization based in Kenya that educates mostly Kenyan women, but also I think there were some women from Rwanda and Uganda in the class that I taught. These women asked some of the best, like most interesting, thought provoking questions, questions that I would not have thought to ask until I had studied this for a few months. And I had just taught like a basics of Bitcoin class. So I'm curious to hear, what are people asking you when you teach them something? What tends to be the response? What tends to be what they're curious about or what they want to know more after your lessons?
um for the longest time, I was kind of explaining Bitcoin like you just meet a person and you start talking, bombarding them of with what is Bitcoin, like on the spot, right? But
Yeah.
in due time, like I've come to really change my approach and my delivery and how I structure when I'm educating guys about Bitcoin. So how I do it in a three tiered kind of manner. So step one would be to address the misinformation, disinformation, and especially why the fiat system is broken. So when you start with that, like I can, with the disinformation and misinformation, there are a lot of crypto projects like the likes of WorldCoin who just come to pump their bags and everything here in Africa.
Yep.
So I give credible examples of cryptocurrency projects who have come to Africa and how they go out of their way to mislead Africans for their own personal gain, and more so do it in a step by step manner so that they can see how uh, a cryptocurrency project is like birthed from nothing, and how they do the pre-mine and how they do the marketing to the final step where they do their rug pull now to steal your money.
Yep.
Once I do that,
Yep.
now I address the issue of like what is money, like what do you think money is, and then now I do that hand in hand with explaining inflation specifically, because a lot of guys, like obviously a lot of guys who do not essentially know what inflation is just know that like in Kenya, a loaf of bread was maybe X amount of shillings, and now it's Y amount of shillings, so now it's more expensive. So they're like, something is not going on right, but they can't pinpoint and say, like, this is the exact problem. So
Yep.
I explain to them how now, like, Bitcoin is deflationary and like that kind of thing. So when you address those like three big, like, pain points, even they put it that way. Now I do a Q&A session. Now with the Q&A
That's a
session, that's when it
yeah.
gets interesting, because now like sometimes I can have 1,000 shillings like this, I'm holding it up, so everyone in the audience like knows, yeah, like we are going to win some money here. But now you explain to them, like, if you saved 1,000 Kenya shillings from January till now in September, like the value would have gone down. So it is better
Yeah.
even now, instead of me giving you this 1,000 Kenya shillings, it's better for me to give you the Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
So the Bitcoin, yes, there is the volatility, but that is where even the upside comes from. So it is not a bug; it is a feature. So now
Yes.
that like stirs their curiosity, and then especially in Kenya, like the cost of living and the taxes are just going like sky high. So right now, everyone knows there's a clear problem. It's just that they cannot see like a viable solution. So
Right.
in Africa in general, explaining what is Bitcoin is not something difficult, because people already know and see the problems. Because like in
Yeah.
Kenya, Chase Bank and Imperial Bank collapsed, and and people did not get their money back. Everyone knows that, it was all over the news. There's this lady who got like her boyfriend sent her 102 million Kenya shillings.
Okay.
So now through the bank. So what
Yeah.
happened is the guys for the taxes, our equivalent of the IRS is called the KRA. They were like, this is a problem and everything. It went to court, so there was a back and forth. But in the end, the government said they cannot sufficiently prove that her boyfriend does legitimate business. So the government is keeping the money.
Woo.
So when guys
Wow.
hear, like guys know these horror stories, like, and then like a shitcoin like WorldCoin that really blew up like here in Kenya, like to the extent where like the CEO guy and everything had to come to Kenya, like was had to come to Kenya even to explain to the parliament and meet the president
Mm.
to explain like
Wow.
why the hell you're coming to take guys biometric information.
Yep.
So like all of this
Yep.
like is just information which is out there. So guys know the problems they have. It's just a solution which they don't have. Yeah.
Yep. That's great. So I like what you do is you sort of start with the broader context, what's happening in the world, what's inflation, what is money, and then you talk about how Bitcoin fits into that. That's actually really brilliant. I'm not, yeah, I don't know that I've ever thought to do it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. That's great.
Like
The oh,
the best part about that is the one thing which I came to see, like a lot of Kenyans, especially if you don't follow like the American news or the news, the financial news in the States and like in the UK, most Bitcoin podcasts from the States and the UK give examples which are not relevant in the African context. Because when
mm,
you start talking about Gary Gensler and the SEC, that kind of thing, this guy was coming to you looking for a solution. Now you're giving him like more three-letter agencies to think about, which he doesn't need in his life. So, like,
yep,
just giving the information and then explaining, like, especially in Swahili and Sheng, and then giving this relative, this very relatable examples, like you say what is a bank run and everything, and you when you talk about fractional reserve banking and what is a bank run, and then now put the example of these two banks in Kenya and what happened. Now it clicks like slowly by
yeah.
slowly. Yeah.
That is super helpful for me to hear. One of the reasons I started doing these interviews is because we hear a lot of from the United States, like, oh, this is going to help people in Africa or Latin America or Southeast Asia. And my thought was like, well, why don't I want to actually talk to people from these places to actually see if it's helping or not and how it's helping and what's good. But I agree, there's a lot of stuff that goes on about the regulatory oversight and everything else. That's information that most people are just like, look, we don't really care. Yeah, sure, it'll be a good thing. Maybe I have mixed feelings about the ETF. The price of Bitcoin might go up, but my thoughts are like you can buy Bitcoin now if you want to, or you can get Bitcoin right now if you want to. Most people in the United States, as you said, they're sort of complacent, so they don't want to take the responsibility for, learning how to use a hardware wallet or hold or custodying their Bitcoin themselves. So they're just waiting for Bitcoin to be available through a traditional financial brokerage. It might help the price, but it also might cause other issues with a lot of what we call paper trading, where people aren't actually trading Bitcoin, or Bitcoin is not actually being traded. It's more people trading IOUs for Bitcoin. Whereas what I see more and what I hear more of in Africa is people teaching one another how to manage their private keys, how to learn to take self custody, understanding that owning Bitcoin is a responsibility. And I think that that's surely more of the message that more people should be learning. But as you said, and I will reiterate, as someone who lives here, a lot of people are complacent. They don't want to be bothered with this. And part of the reason is also, like you said, they don't really have to be bothered. We have systems that work well enough for now. I think that's going to change. And I think that when things like CBDCs, central bank currencies, get introduced into the equation, and maybe people don't realize that like their money expires, like the government gives you a certain amount of money, and you have to, or the Fed gives you a certain amount of money and you have to spend it in 3 months or it expires, things like that. Or when transactions get censored, then people will start to realize how important it is to self custody Bitcoin. And in some ways, it won't be too late, but it will surely be late. Whereas I think, as you just said, a lot of people in Africa understand that sometimes the banking system does things that are surely not in their favor. So they already know what the risk is and they already know what the problem is. So I think it's easier for people who've already felt some of that pain to say, okay, I'm going to learn about this Bitcoin thing if it gives me some sort of autonomy over my own life. So I think that's great perspective. I want to shift a little bit over to some of the tours that you do. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you take people, as you said, to the Gridless site. Could you give the audience a little bit of an overview of what Gridless is, and then why you thought to take people there, to show them the facilities?
Yeah, so Gridless Compute, basically known as Gridless, is a Bitcoin mining company. So in Africa, they have multiple locations, and it just so happens that in Kenya, they have a very good, well organized, and very well managed site in a part of Kenya, in the Mount Kenya highlands where I come from, which is known as Muranga. So in the Gridless mining site, there is a small, like, power generation, like, substation, and then now on the side you have now the gridless, like, container with the miners and like that kind of thing, like mining Bitcoin. So for your audience, what, like, I would like to do for it to be even more visual is I'll send you a link to one of my YouTube videos where sometimes I go like with videographers, so they show the whole facility and how it looks like, for the audience to better engage and know what is gridless like here in Kenya, and how like Bitcoin mining is being done very, very successfully and professionally here in Kenya. So
Perfect.
based on the Gridless site, I've been very honored to be in a position to meet and know their team, especially led by Eric. So when I got introduced to Gridless and what they do, I I decided to. I was thinking about how I can put together Bitcoin and Kenyan culture. So Kenyan culture is like, when you talk about matatus, because the project which I do to take people to different Bitcoin projects here in Kenya, like physically, is called the Bitcoin Matatu Tours. So with Bitcoin Matatu Tours, the whole aim is to, a matatu basically is a Kenyan public service vehicle. It's a van. So the history of the matatu comes from where it's called tatu. Tatu means three in Swahili.
Mm.
During the colonial era, a lot of basically Kenyans who worked in this, like, colonial kinds of setup, used to pay three pennies to commute to their like job.
Oh.
So it's kind of rooted in in something which was bad. But now, after independence, it became most Kenyans took it as a business. So with the Kenyan enterprising nature, most of them, like, if Frank has a van and Frank's van is white and mine is white, if I put a better sound system, I'll get more customers than Frank, so I'll do more trips. And then when Frank notices that, he goes, puts a system and puts graffiti, so he gets more customers and then better seats. So it just went crazy. So
I love it.
to the extent that, like, if I come from estate X, and then you live in estate Y, we can even meet up as friends, and I'm like, yeah, we have a new matatu which does the new graffiti, very nice lights, neon lights with nice seats. So I was just like, with this culture, what we need is a Bitcoin matatu now, like a
Okay.
very pimped out, like, ride and everything, like the Scooby Doo van for Africa, but on the Bitcoin standard, taking guys to different Bitcoin places. So
Yep.
for me, I see like it's a very good merger of African culture and something which is really, really rooted in the Kenyan, like, way of life on a daily basis with Bitcoin. And to which makes it something which makes it even better is a lot of, especially like, guys from the States and the UK, obviously, due to like the misinformation and everything on the news, when they come to Africa, they are not so sure about like their security, their transportation, their accommodation, the food, where they can exchange money. If you lose something, where can you buy it? If your iPhone breaks down, that kind of thing. So
Yep.
I actually got, like, I've done I've done like, more than 10 trips before I've even, like, it's now like I'm doing the negotiations to actually buy the actual matatu. But
Yep.
when guys had like it's Master Guantai, you started, now it became a whole thing, because now when you're coming to the
Nice.
States and you want to come to like, you're visiting Kenya specifically, you'll pass through Kenya, you want a fellow Bitcoiner who you know other guys know. So maybe like me and you, Frank, we have spoken before, but they may be like, I know Frank and Master Guantai know each other. So let me talk to Frank to introduce me to Master Guantai, so that when I'm at the airport, he can come pick me up. He'll show me a good Airbnb, the
Yeah.
best joints if you want to go out, like eat or anything. I want to book a safari. Maybe I want to buy some equipment. So they have that peace of mind, like just knowing when I come to Kenya, I'm meeting someone who's known and trusted in the community. So I'll be safe and everything will go good for me when I come to Kenya.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's more or less than African culture and Bitcoin, and then now running like it's a for profit, like, venture, but
Yep.
solving, yeah, like, to get money you must solve someone's problem. So I'm
Yep.
solving a problem and then I
Yep.
answered, because yeah, we receive payment in Bitcoin. And so far, like, I've taken a lot of guys from the States, the UK, that kind of thing, to see the facilities, and they're always happy. And we do photos, and when you post the link to the to the Twitter handle, you'll see the thread which is posted on the pinned tweet, so you can see a lot of happy faces from all over the
Yeah.
world. Yeah,
Yeah, that's an amazing. That has to be a really enjoyable experience because I'm sure people, especially in the Bitcoin community, there's a lot of trust between Bitcoiners,
yeah,
Bitcoin enthusiasts, and I'm sure people feel really relaxed to know that they're in good hands when they're with you in Kenya. So it feels like whenever I see the Instagram videos you post, everyone's smiling, everyone looks like they're having a good time. I'm like, man, these guys are having a blast over there. That's great. That's a Yeah, you found a really cool. Yeah, it's just a great thing to capitalize on. And I think beyond just being in Africa, thinking about safety, anytime someone's in a new place in general,
mm,
they want to feel safe. They want to feel like they're with someone they can trust. It's not a matter of it being on Africa and Asia and in whatever
yeah.
in America. So I think that you're providing a great service, and it's just nice to know that when you get on the ground somewhere, you have someone who you could talk to, someone you could trust, someone who you have something in common with. That's really great. Could you explain to people from what you've seen? I just want the audience to understand Gridless a little bit more as well. How does Gridless operate in Kenya? So I believe it's right next to a major source of water. That's my understanding, and that basically Bitcoin mining is happening as a result of capturing hydroelectric power. Could you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so like basically on like a 10,000 feet overview, how the facility is in Kenya we have Mount Kenya. So there are a lot of rivers which stem from the mountain area. So with
Okay.
the topography of how the like any typical mountain area is, you find that there are many locations where as the river is going downstream, you get that the slopes are the inclines are like huge, so there are places where you can find it's like even like a literal like waterfall. So
Yeah.
that is now the substation capitalizes on now generating electricity uh, with now the water from the river, right? So now, when the electricity is generated, the excess of the electricity which is generated because now the that hydro plant is located in a place which is scarcely populated, and
Yep.
even though it is scarcely populated, even the households like in that area being like a rural area of Kenya do not really consume a lot of electricity. So other than maybe one tea factory which processes tea because that area grows a lot of tea and coffee, there's no
Mm,
there's no other place which like really has that all huge demand of power. So
okay.
when that power now is generated now, the excess of it goes towards gridless now mining Bitcoin using the excess power which is generated from that substation. And then they have done
Yep.
it in a very professional manner so that, like, one of the most impressive things, the whole system is automated. So you can find at a certain point of in time, maybe there are, let's say they have let's say hypothetically they have like 300 miners. You can find that only like 250 miners are running, and then when
Hmm.
like there is a spike in the in the excess electricity being produced, now the rest of them can go online and vice versa. So the gridless team is actually like doing it and doing it well, like very professionally, as your audience will clearly see. Like even the videos I've done inside the containers are, yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool to hear. Are most people that you take there, are they sort of taken back by it? Are they sort of amazed by the by the setup, by the operation?
They're extremely like blown away because
Wow.
if 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 there's one thing, Eric, like they are perfectionists. Like even the spacing
Oh, okay.
between the miners, how the wiring is done, like you can clearly see that it is very well thought out, very clean, very a very nice setup. Yeah. So
That's amazing.
obviously, any they say it's a Bitcoin heaven. Brendan from Uganda says you can hear the sound of little Bitcoins being created.
Cool. That's awesome. I love it. Actually, I'll speak with you after. I've been following him for a while and would love to speak with him as well. He seems super sharp, super bright. Um, with all of this exciting stuff happening around Bitcoin in Kenya, what does we know that Bitcoin? Let me preface what I'm going to say. We know that Bitcoin potentially takes, well, it does, it takes certain power away from central banks. Has there been pushback from the Kenyan government or the Bank of Kenya, the Central Bank of Kenya, on Bitcoin adoption? Are they open minded to it? Are they sort of allowing people, or is there any sort of pushback by the authorities saying we don't like this, we don't want to see any more of it, etc.?
For the authorities in Kenya specifically, it was always been like yeah, like in Kenya as a government and as a central bank, Bitcoin is not a currency to us, and
Right.
so if you choose to use it, like basically use it at your own risk. It's not
Got
money,
it.
it's not currency. Like, you do your own thing. However, now there's not really been, I can't say like a lot of pushback, but the way what WorldCoin did brought a lot of publicity, like negative publicity
Mm,
to the crypto space here in Kenya. And
sure.
when I say
Yep.
crypto, I don't like even saying the word crypto, but like most Kenyans, when they hear Bitcoin, they just think it's just another cryptocurrency.
Right. Right.
So now we are just waiting for next steps, that kind of thing, as they kind of try to like regulate the whole scene. But everyone, the sentiment is basically they are getting all like African countries are just waiting for America to like put the whole draft and everything and pass a law, and then they'll copy paste with some edits. So the
Oh.
American thing or the European thing, whoever does it first, will be like the template, which will set the tone now of how harsh or how lenient or what we need to tweak here and there as per the Kenyan government to implement it and regulate the
Oh.
system. Yeah.
Interesting. So let's say so that makes me a little bit nervous because obviously we know that a lot of people in America, we can't say all, but a lot of politicians do not necessarily like Bitcoin. What if the legislation or the regulatory messaging from the United States wasn't so positive and maybe Kenya took the same stance? How do you think most Kenyan Bitcoiners would react?
Most Kenyan Bitcoiners would react negatively, obviously. And in Kenya, the one thing I
Yeah.
like in Kenya, and even like our government, like any government has their own faults, no problem. But Kenyans,
Yep.
we have a way of making our government listen to us, even if by force, especially especially like
That's great.
on Twitter. Like Kenyans on Twitter like are no
Okay.
joke like at all. So if something is not in good taste or whatever, it's clearly blown out of proportion to the extent that even our own president cannot ignore it. But now, like in certain sectors,
Wow.
yeah, like he has to address it when it becomes a whole thing. So like I like there are certain let's say like ministries whereby the guys who are there like assistant ministers and like that kind of thing are young, they are open minded, and they want results. Like the one thing which I know, like it won't be so detrimental, the legislation, even if they choose to copy paste some of it if it's negative, is that the government's sole primary objective is to look out for the youth. And now,
Okay.
when it comes to the Bitcoin space, specifically here in Kenya, 99.999% of everyone doing this, either P2P trading, either education, either whatever kind of thing, are the youth. So now
Mm.
the government does not want to hear anything like the youth like saying like you're bringing this legislation which is negative and we don't already have jobs and we are educated, so
Yeah.
it's like you're blocking us from opportunities left, right, and center.
Opportunities. Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
with that in mind, like I can say I'm not worried.
That that is very inspiring to me, and I actually want to leave on a high note like that. That's really inspiring. And I'm laughing as you're saying this a little bit, or smiling, because I found so many Kenyans on Twitter. So you guys are very good at being loud on Twitter. That's where I found most of you. So I think the first, yeah, it's amazing. You guys are very good with social media, but I think what's I'm hearing from a lot of people, not just in different African countries, but around the world, even in the United States to some degree, is that politicians, they're listening. They know that Bitcoin is now something that needs to be considered. They know that around the world, youth unemployment is a thing. It's an issue here. There's not as much opportunity as there was in previous generations. In America, cost of living is very high. People need a way to hedge against these things. So there's a lot of there is a lot of pushback around the world. And I think anywhere where there is a democracy, even if it's not perfectly functioning, I think people are starting to remember that. Well, at least here, they're getting a reminder. It seems like Kenyans are very aware of this. Is that the government works for you? You vote for them. They do the things you want them to do. So I think on all fronts, anybody who is passionate about Bitcoin and greater adoption just has to keep pushing. Much like, and we should follow the Kenyans' examples because you guys are doing a great job over there. So um, I'm going to leave it there. I really, really appreciate this. I hope everybody who's listening, who's followed Master Guantai for a while appreciates this as much as I do. I remember the first time that I found out about you. I had sort of known, but I was messaging back and forth with Rufus Kamau, who's a Kenyan who works at FX Pesa. It's like a trading platform, from what I understand, in Kenya. And I was asking for resources to help educate people in rural Ghana, some people who I had lived with, about it, and he tagged you in it, and I was just like, oh no, Master Guantai, like I don't, like you seemed like a fictional character, as I said, to go back to the beginning from your mystique. And as I've gotten to know you, you're like the nicest, most down to earth, like guy. So I hope that everybody else takes that away as well. He's very serious. He's surely super laser eyed, and I appreciate that. But he's also a super nice guy. So I hope you guys have all taken that away from this interview. Is there anything? Please let the audience know where they can find you online. Yeah, all that kind of stuff, and anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up.
I would just like to thank you for the opportunity to come on to your podcast. I really enjoyed myself. For
Likewise.
me, I'm always ready, able, and willing to help anyone across the world when it comes to the Bitcoin space. So on Twitter, obviously, it's at Master Guantai. On Instagram, masterguantai.bitcoin mtani, and my TikTok, guys, it's masterguantai.bitcoin. So my DMs are open if you have any queries, especially in what is going happening in the Bitcoin space here in Kenya and Africa in general, or you just want to like have a chat. Like if you have like anything to discuss, I'm always ready, willing, and able to help out. So asante sana, that means thank you very much, and yeah, welcome to Kenya. Consider your vacation to be here in Kenya. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. To everyone, I know some people think about Kenya. Maybe you're thinking about safari or this or that, but while you're there, you're also gonna reach out to Master Guantai, take a trip to him to go take a trip with him to go visit the Gridless facilities and just introduce yourself. So to all my listeners who might just be sort of dipping their toes into the Bitcoin space, if you're in Kenya on vacation, this is the man to reach out to. So I will leave it that. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Talk soon.